Dr. Bryan Williams, we are so excited to have you with us today. We know that you are a very up-tempo kind of guy. And so we always like to kick off this podcast with a little bit of rapid fire, true and false. You down?
Yes. I'm down. I'm all the way down.
Excellent.
I love the energy. I think it's going to be off the charts today. So buckle up, people. All right.
Let's do it.
We got 7 questions for you. Question number 1, true or false? Smiling's contagious.
True.
All right. True or false? Never go first, go second.
False.
Question 3, the choice you make today will be the choice you make tomorrow.
100%, 1,000% true, Corrie-Beth. You heard me.
Excellent. All right. Good favor falls on the lucky.
False.
Fantastic. Next, competing with others is what should drive us.
False.
All right. Number 6, Dr. Williams, you don't have an off button.
True. I do not have an off button. It's true.
And finally, true or false? We should all aspire to be extra crispy.
True.
Well, now
True.
you know we really paid attention when we got to hear your wonderful message at the Resistance Exercise Conference up in Minnesota. And I think what I want to do is dive back into that first question. You know, smiling is contagious, because when you got up on that stage, Dr. Williams, the whole room just lit up with energy, and people were so engaged, and they were engaged the whole conference, but they were like extra engaged in your message. Why do you believe it's so important for us to carry that type of energy? And, you know, Mike kind of hit on it. Go first, smile first, be nice first.
Well, I think the biggest thing is that it's contagious, and it's really you're sharing your light with other people. I think that when you get up in the morning, you have light with you, or you should have that light with you. Matter of fact, you woke up, that means that you're blessed beyond measure. Because some people who were alive yesterday are not alive today. So you woke up, so you have light. And the whole purpose of light is not to just hide it away in a closet somewhere. The purpose is to spread light to everyone in the room. Now, for some people, as you mentioned, your light can be shined through smiling. Others, it may be telling a joke. Others, it may be sharing an encouraging word. For somebody else, it may be giving a scripture, something. But I think the smiling specifically, as you know, it transcends languages, right? Anyone in any language. I can go to Istanbul, Turkey, or I can go to Shanghai, China, or I can go to Armenia, or I can go to Brazil and smile. And we know what each other mean. Like, we understand that language.
That's beautiful. Well, put it under a bushel. No, we're going to let it shine.
For the world to see. That's it.
That's right. That's right. Well, in your talk, you talked about the 5 principles that drive success. So I think this would be a great opportunity off the back of your true and false answers to actually start tapping into each one of those. So why don't you kick us off with number 1?
Absolutely. I want to say number 1 was I will greet this day with love in my heart. Yeah, I will greet this day. What we did at REC was a condensed version of a bigger talk that has 10 of those principles. Yeah, so I think we had a 50-minute segment that we did 5. But I will greet this day with love in my heart. And that kind of goes back to what I just said earlier. I believe that love transcends everything. I think what love makes you do is reach farther than you would have gone on your own. As a matter of fact, this morning I was driving my kids into school, and I was talking with them about this very topic. We were talking about the crucifixion. We were talking about love. And I was saying, you can't really have love without a sacrifice. Sacrifice in the sense of diminishing what you want in order to provide for somebody else. That's a pure reflection and a strong reflection of love. It's not about what I want. Is I'm willing to give up something for you because I care about you. Now, that's easier to say when you have somebody who you know you're in an intimate relationship with, like Corrie-Beth and Mike. Both of you, I think, allegedly know each other.
Very well.
Pretty good.
Yeah. Excuse me. But what about the person who just walks to your fitness studio? You've never met them before. What about the person in the post office or in the grocery store in traffic? Do you still greet your day with love in your heart with this person? Absolutely. You know why? Because they were put in your path for a reason. And I don't believe in any accident. That's why one of your true or false questions was about luck. I don't believe in luck. I believe in divine favor. I believe God putting things there in your path so you can make it better somewhere or to teach you something. But greeting the day with love in your heart, it's really about being intentional and fixing your thoughts on what's good and true and honorable and right and pure and lovely. Because if you preoccupy yourself with those things, you leave very little room for the negative.
Yeah.
Right? There's not much room left to dwell on the negative because you're focusing so much on what's good.
I love that so much.
Well, you mentioned something there, and I think this is a great point to elaborate on. So you brought up the resurrection, and we've heard the story of Jesus praying right before that happened, like, God, if there's a way, take this cup from me. If there's another way. And I love that because you just hit on it. It's not about my will. It's about what I need to do for him. And then we're doing that for other people. And that was, that just stood out to me when you said that. I couldn't help but to think, yeah, this is exactly what Jesus was contending with. He was saying, I don't necessarily want to do this. This is hard.
That's the point.
This is not easy.
Yes.
But I need to do this for others. And that speaks entirely to what you were just talking about.
Yes, absolutely. And to just take it one step further, Corrie-Beth and Mike, even the people who were torturing him and who eventually nailed him on a cross, those same people, while they were torturing him, he prayed to God, asking God, he cried out to God, don't hold this against them. They don't know what they're doing. Because he's saving them too. The point is, the people who persecute you, you're supposed to love them too. You're supposed to pray for them also. I think that's a truer reflection of praise because it's easy to love someone who you like.
That's the truth.
So easy.
Like anybody can do that. I can be nice to you. And if I like you, I can be nice to you. But what about if I don't? What if I don't know you? What if you did me wrong? And I still, because of my obedience to him, I'm going to be kind to you because it's not about you, boo. As much as that, it's really not about you. Like I became a better husband when I started putting God first.
That is just beautiful.
I became a better father. Sure. Yeah, man. Yeah.
Well, your second pillar, I'll make sure that I give them to you because I know that you had 10 and we got 5. So the second one you gave us was, I will live this day as if it were my last.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So I was talking with my 9-year-old son the other night. Actually, it was last night. I was talking to him how time flies by. I was talking to my son last night, about to put him to bed. And we were discussing just how to be efficient, right? How to get things done. And, and I said to him, the most precious resource we have is time because we can't get it back. And like, what time is it right now? I think it was 8:49 p.m. something. I said, when it gets to 8:49, when it gets to 8:50, 8:49 has gone forever. And I saw a light bulb go off in his head, like, yeah, it's gone forever, isn't it? I'm like, yeah, you'll never get it back. So when we say I will live this day, I will live this day as if it is my last, it means like, how am I showing up today in such a way that I will re-earn the right to come back tomorrow? Like, right? How can I just like a day laborer in a sense? But to take it a step further, I apply it to every area of my life. How am I being a husband today so I can re-earn the right to be a husband tomorrow? How am I being a consultant or a speaker or what today? How am I doing it? How am I being a leader today? If my team can rehire me tomorrow, would they? Like, would they rehire me if they had the opportunity to? So that's what that principle is really about, is like not taking for granted what you have. And if you're living this day as if it is your last, that should remove all entitlement.
So good.
I want to touch on something right now, or I'm going to ask you to touch on something right now. you told a story when we heard you speak about you as a kid looking to do a landscaping job with a group of friends. So can you tell that story? Because I think that sums up exactly what you just said in such a beautiful way.
Absolutely. So I was 12 years old and now I'm 15. So it's like 3 years ago. Okay, Corrie-Beth and Mike. Like,
you look like it.
No, 46 years young. But when I was 12, my friends and I were on St. Thomas, which is where I'm from. So we were in St. Thomas, and it was summertime. We wanted to get our own money, make our own, get our own stuff, to buy our own fancy sneakers and the Jordans and all those kinds of things. But so we got a job. We kept asking a gentleman for a job helping him mow lawns. And he had a contract with the local government cutting grass in the various government buildings. He kept telling us no. Every day we see him, we kept telling him no, telling him no, telling him no. I mean, he kept telling us no, actually. No, 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 you're not ready, you're too young, you're not mature, etc., etc. So we kept being persistent, which is actually one of the principles. I will persist until I succeed. That's actually one of the 10. We kept persisting. And then he eventually said, all right, y'all bother me every day. So here's the deal. I'll give you a job today. But then he turned up the intensity. He was out with somebody and then they turn up the intensity. You can see their eyes just kind of go to that DEFCON 5 kind of level. He said, he looked at each of my 3 friends, me and my 3 friends, there's 4 of us. He said, I'll give you this job today, but you have to work today in such a way that you will earn the right to come back tomorrow. So I've never forgotten that. A day does not go by. Any job I've ever held, I've always thought about it like, oh my gosh, I have to show up today in such a way that I'll re-earn the right to come back tomorrow. So that just lets me know, like, every day starts over. I start over each day. Each day is back at square one. It keeps me humble.
Can't even imagine the degree of productivity that we would have throughout the society if all of us took that approach of whether you are the owner of the business, whether you're working in the business, whether we're talking about your family, like would my family member, would my child choose me as his or her parent based off what I did today? And I think that is just so profound.
Thank you. Yeah. But, and the other part of it is, the other side of the equation, Corrie-Beth and Mike, is also giving yourself the grace when you're not using the time that you've been blessed with, right? When you're not using it properly. Because sometimes you may have wasted the time, right? Sometimes you may have done something that was unproductive, right? Sometimes you may have just not shown up. And a part of this is saying, you know what? I didn't live this day as if it's my last, but by the grace of God, hopefully I'll wake up tomorrow and I'll get another chance. I missed that one shot, but fortunately the game is 48 minutes and I can try another shot.
I love that. No, I love that. Well, and you covered a third pillar, I'll persist until I succeed. The next one I loved, and that was, I will laugh at the world.
Yes, I will laugh at the world. So the smiling comes in. The smiling comes into that one as well. So, and I love the fact that you're not shy about talking about God and Jesus Christ and the gospel. That's my jam. So I love the fact that we can talk about that. So there's a verse, right? Philippians 4, verse 6. And all these principles are biblical, just so you know, which is probably obvious to you by now. But Philippians 4, verse 6, it says, don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank him for all he has done. Then verse 7, then you will experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we can understand. His peace will guard our hearts and minds as we live in Christ Jesus. This says that no matter what happens, it'll go at some point. I don't care what it is. And we've lived long enough to know that it goes. So I think the 4 words we focused on at the conference was, this too shall
pass.
Hey, you got it. You got it. This too shall pass. This too shall pass. And when you have that mindset, it's difficult to dwell. It's difficult to dwell on anything. It's difficult to really dwell on it. I mean, oh my gosh, this sucks right now, but I'll breathe. It'll pass. That doesn't mean that I try to hide from it or try to procrastinate or try to avoid or pretend it doesn't exist, but I'll get through this the same way I've gone through everything else. It's not like I have no idea what it looks like to go through a storm because I've been through storms, right?
Yes.
But the part that really, really was an epiphany for me that I didn't fully get until maybe 2 years ago was that this too shall pass also applies to good things. Like when, you know what I'm talking about, when it's prosperity is flowing and the checks are showing up in the mail, like, where'd this money come from? Oh my gosh, I found another check under the pillow. Where'd this come from? Oh wow, I have too much money now. Oh. I have too much health. I have too much this. I have every day is sunny. Oh my God. No matter what, that passes. Every single thing passes. So the point of that whole this too shall, I will laugh at the world is that I will appreciate all that I have. I'll appreciate what I have. Imagine what can be, but I'm going to appreciate what I have because whether it's too much or too little, I'm good. I'm fine. I'm going to try to up. I'm sorry?
I was going to say, and it was Paul who had said that I've learned to live with both.
Yes.
I've learned to live with a lot. I've learned to live with a little. I've learned to live being celebrated and then persecuted. And I think that principle is so important because there are many people who live very high highs and very low lows, but peace really does come from recognizing that the highs are not going to last, but neither are the lows. And when you approach each day like that, when we're in a day and age when everybody is getting slammed day in and day out with good news, bad news, good news, bad news, good news, it doesn't stop. But recognizing that you can sit in peace in those times because that shall pass.
It shall pass. Absolutely. It shall pass. And it's good to remind ourselves of that and to remind others of that as well. But a lot of people, unfortunately, have never been taught that. So they feel like this is a sentence. Oh my gosh, this happened and it's going to be with me forever. Or this was a bad choice and it's going to just put a curse on my life. No, the curse is really what you're choosing to hold on to it.
Well, and I want to loop this in for our listeners to health and fitness and wellness, because I think the greatest lie that we get fed by the enemy is the lie of forever and never, right? I'm going to have this health sentence forever, or I will never achieve success. I will never lose this weight. And both of those are complete lies. You know, I love so much how you give us the not just inspiration or motivation, but actual tools, Dr. Williams, to really take ownership of our lives. And that's why this message today, this episode is so applicable, not just to, oh, they're just talking about mindset. No, guys, we're talking about life. These are life lessons that are transferable to your health, your wellness, your fitness. Put it in your finances, put it in your marriage, put it in your job. All of this stuff is transferable and it makes sense. And if you apply these principles that Dr. Williams is setting forth here today, I promise your life's going to change.
I love that. Well, thank you for your kind words. And I'll say, yeah, and you're right, Corrie-Beth. The mindset is the key to everything else. If your mindset changes, then everything will resonate more. Like your eating habits, your working out habits, your quiet time habits. It's about the mindset. Once you have the mindset, that's what it is. So all these principles, they're not my principles, right? They're biblical in nature, but they were encapsulated beautifully in a book that came out in the 1950s or 60s called The Greatest Salesman in the World, written by Og Mandino. So those principles were in that book. He encapsulated them beautifully in that book. And that's why when I read that book at least 20 times over the last 20 plus years. And all my content that I use when I'm speaking, they're all original content, except for this one. The one that you saw, that came from that because it's so potent.
So good. It's so good. Well, and with that, I want to go into the last principle that you gave to us and then some of this extra crispiness. And that is, I will act now. Can you unpack that a bit for our listeners that maybe are struggling with action or the next step or what that looks like? Why is this principle, I will act now?
Sure. Well, as you know, in physics, you have something called inertia. Inertia is things will stay on the same path unless you do something to knock it off the path. If you are seeking a desirable change in your life and you want tomorrow to look any different, it's mandatory that you start like literally today. And I shared a study, I think I shared with you, right? I shared a study at the Red Conference.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so I was keynoting at a conference. It was an URSA conference, fitness industry conference in Los Angeles a couple of years ago. And one of the other keynote speakers was from Stanford University. She was a psychologist, and she was talking about a study that she had just completed, and she was sharing the results of the study. It was fascinating. She had a group of people who got together, and they didn't know each other at all, but each of them had to commit to being a part of a 3-month fitness study. But specifically, the purpose of the study was to measure the relationship between goal setting and goal attainment. That was the purpose of the study. So at the beginning of the 3-month period, each person had an opportunity to write down on a piece of paper how often they planned to work out on a weekly basis. So you could put whatever you want. You could put once a week, twice a week, 5 times, 10 times. You could put whatever number you want. You are empowered to do so. You got to so now the midway point of this study, so we're like 6 weeks in, the researchers checked to see the status of everyone and how well they were progressing and see how many were compliant. Only 20% were compliant. So here's the crispy part now, Corrie-Beth and Mike. The researchers gave everyone an opportunity at that midpoint to revise their goals. Because now you have 6 weeks of reality. You have 6 weeks of reality. Now revise your goals. You have the chance to. And as you know, no one revised their goals. So 0%, no one changed their goals. They're basically like, nah, you know what? I was playing before, I'm serious now. Just you watch. We got to the end of, so 6 weeks more went by. So then we got to the end of the 3-month study, and only 10% were successful. 10% worked out. And you in the fitness industry, this all sounds familiar, right?
Very.
So 10%, so just to unpack this a little bit more, 10% of people did what they said they were going to do, right? They had every intention, which is, I'll do a quick deviation. That's why it's important to not set goals based on emotion, because your emotion goes up and down every day. But if you have a goal and you want to move forward, it doesn't matter how you feel, you have to do it, right? That's the march forward. I'm going to do it. I don't care how I feel right now. I don't feel like doing it, but I'm going to do it anyway. You see? Because you have to keep your word to yourself because of whatever it is. So anyway, so 10% was successful. So the researchers then did a deep dive on the 10% to extract best practices, lessons learned. What did they have in common? What was a common theme of that 10%? It turns out that the only thing that 10% had in common was that they all said in their own way to themselves, I will work out today. That was the only thing they had in common, because they knew if they did it today, then chances were much higher they'll do it again. When?
Tomorrow.
Hey, that's it. So the key is, so the real takeaway is that the choice you make today will be the choice you make
tomorrow.
That's the key. The choice you make today. And that goes for the good and the bad. If there's something you're trying to stop doing, if there's a habit, if there's an addiction, if there's a stronghold in your life that's been mocking you and teasing you and saying, oh, I thought you were better than this. Ha, whatever. Like people the enemy loves to mock you, right? Yeah. And say, well, you should have gotten over this. This is the same struggle, the same thorn in your flesh you've been dealing with for the last 10, 20 years. And now, see, you're no good. You just sound good, but you're not really good. The best thing you can do is commit all your energy and not doing it today. That's it. Because what happens, tomorrow becomes day one all over again. And the day after that becomes day one all over again. And you string together enough day ones, then you get 21 days. And you know very well, if you do anything for 21 days, it becomes really hard to stop doing it, good or bad.
That's true. And, you know, what this also reminded me of, I believe it was in one of Jim Collins' books. He talked about the 20-mile march. And, you know, they had, you know, the story, right? They were two groups of people that were going to march across the country, I believe it was. And, you know, they took two different approaches. One group just decided every day, I'm going to do 20 miles, whether it's sunny, whether it's raining, whether it's windy, whether it's hot, whether it's cold. I'm just going to do 20 miles. And then the other group was more reactionary. Nice day, I'll go for 40. Bad weather, I might do 5. Feeling a little tired, I'm going to sleep. And of course, as we could imagine, it sounds so obvious right now talking about it here. Everybody's like, well, of course, the group that did the 20-mile march every single day got to the destination faster. But yet this is what we do each and every day when we're making our decisions about the way I'm going to eat, the way I'm going to exercise, the lifestyle choices, how I'm going to parent, how I'm going to work. And I think it would serve so many people to, instead of having these grandiose expectations about what they're going to do, establish what's going to be your 20 miles that you could do each day, but just do that consistently. And then, like anything else, you start to build that muscle, you start to increase your endurance. And then maybe your 20-mile march becomes a 30-mile march because you built up the resiliency to be able to do that. But you're never going to get that resiliency if one day I'm eating really well and the next day I'm off the tracks. And this day I'm going to exercise as hard as I ever had. And tomorrow, well, I'm way too sore to do anything.
Yes, no, it requires so much discipline. And a lot of people need to be reminded that they have it within them, but they may have talked themselves out of it. They may have believed a lie that they've told themselves, or someone else may have told them that you can't really do that, whatever that is. So that's why it's important to be very stingy about the words you allow into your spirit, and very stingy about the words you allow other people to say to you. Be very, very protective of that, because words, as you know, have tremendous power, especially the words we say to ourselves.
Well, I was looking at some of your content and I was listening to one of the talks that you gave, and you made mention, and this will probably shock a lot of people because they hear the doctor title, they listen to you speak. You're clearly very intelligent, very well read, very well spoken, and you were bullied as a kid. You went through a number of trials to get to where you are. So let's talk about that, about your mindset and what had to shift and change for you.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, Mike, yeah, I grew up, I was bullied every day because I had a severe speech impairment. I was a stutterer, like a hardcore stutterer, teased, bullied, embarrassed every day, all of it. And looking back, I realized, oh my gosh, I thought that was a curse on my life. You know, sometimes you go into a season and you think it's a curse on your life. And looking back, I can see to myself, wow, I wouldn't be a speaker today if I wasn't a stutterer then. Reason being, when I was a stutterer, because I couldn't speak, really. I couldn't really speak without being laughed at, teased, so I just choose not to talk. But I was fantasizing in my brain every day about talking. Like, that was my superhero power. My fantasy was talking to people and just talking with them in a group, because that's what I always wanted to do. So when the opportunity came up for me to do that, and I got out of that because I was working in hotels, and I fell so much in love with that I forgot to stutter. Basically, is kind of what happened, and this happened around the 11th grade. I felt like I had been doing it my whole life because I was doing it my whole life in my mind. Yeah, but back to the mindset piece. The mindset piece is essentially being unreasonable and unrealistic about your dreams, because your dreams are supposed to be unrealistic. They're supposed to be audacious. It's supposed to be what? It's a dream, right? You're flying, you're doing something that's wild, right? So there's no losing in your dream. So I've always been blessed with a very vivid imagination. So I have a dream. I always have dreams. I always have visions. I'm always like daydreaming. I used to be teased. My parents used to tell me, "Why are you so dotish? Like you're doting all the time." The reason being, I was always somewhere else. I was always thinking about a dream. I was always picturing myself. And when you do that enough, you start to say, "Well, why not? Like, why can't I?" Insert the fill in the blank. Like, why not? I love why not, by the way. That's one of my favorite phrases on earth is why not? You gonna do this? Why not? Like, it has to be done. Like, somebody has to do it, right? Why can't it be me or you?
Absolutely. I think that's great. We have a friend who always says, she always says also, why not me? Why not me? And I think that's exactly what you're speaking to. It's so true. You know, why not me? And I think though, for many people, maybe the challenge they have right now as they're listening to this is that they have contended with so much disappointment, not reaching the dream, if you will. So what do we say to those individuals?
Sure, absolutely. Develop develop the habit of saying positive things to yourself starting today. Like starting today, literally go in the mirror and say something positive to yourself today. Like that's step one. Just say something positive to yourself. One of my favorite books is that I'm sure that you've heard of or probably read, knowing both of you. It's called The Four Agreements.
I gotta read that one. You're like the fourth person that said that. Have you read that?
Yeah.
All right. I am going to order that today.
Today. Amazon is like a click of a button away, right? Don Miguel Ruiz. I read this book over 20 years ago, and this book, one of the four agreements is be impeccable with your word. And you may think, well, that's about integrity and doing what you say you're going to do. That's not really what he's talking about. He's saying words have the ability to put a spell on people, including yourself. If I say to you, you're dumb, you're stupid, you're ugly, and I say that to you enough times, you'll believe it. And you'll walk around in your life thinking you're dumb, stupid, ugly, whatever the case is. But if I say, you're amazing, you're phenomenal, you're beautiful, you're a conqueror, I see potential in you, you are a champion, you are, right? If I say these things to you enough times, you will believe it.
So good.
And if you say that to yourself enough times, you will believe it. Like you will believe it. Now, the key, the balance, however, is saying those kinds of things to yourself without becoming arrogant. Because you believe it. You will believe it. If I say I'm the best, whatever, speaker in the world, if I say it over and over again, I'll believe it. Then the balance is knowing, and this is where God for me comes in so well. In First Peter, there's a verse that says, you humble yourselves under the mighty power of God, and at the right time, He will lift you up in honor. Right? Humble. I don't worry about the honor. I don't worry about being thanked. I don't worry about the recognition. That's not my motivation. My thing is, how can I be used to serve others? How can I be used to share what has been entrusted to me? My encouragement, my energy, my teaching, my knowledge, all these things that I've been blessed to have are not mine. They're entrusted to me so I can share with others. Because if I do that, I get more, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's outstanding. I always think too of, whatever your hands should find you to do it to the glory of God. And, when you're doing it that way, you're doing it to honor God. I mean, all the accolades, all that, they'll just come as a consequence of that.
That's what I think about when I fold Mike's laundry, by the way.
And that's what I think about when I'm sitting there doing the dishes. So, because there is nothing I despise more than doing dishes. But that's what I keep saying as I'm doing. I'm going, all right, whatever my hands should find me to do, this is what my hands are finding me to do right now. Do it as good as you can.
Do it. Absolutely. It's actually, I consider it to be a sin to deliberately do less than what you're capable of doing. I think it's sinful to do, like, you can do 10, but you choose to do 5 or 6. Now you're dishonoring You're dishonoring yourself. You're dishonoring your brand. You're dishonoring what God made you, because God made you to be excellent, not to just do the bare minimum and begrudgingly dragged through. Like, He didn't create you for that. He created you for excellence. And so I love that. There's a verse that I love. It says in Matthew 25, verse 29, it says, to those who use well what they're given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken away. So I don't want God to take anything away from me. So whatever He blesses me with, I'm going to use it a lot. With time, my talents, my treasures for His glory.
To that point, let's just come back around to one of the things that we did not necessarily do a deep dive on. So I think this is a good opportunity. This concept of me first, because I think some people might hear me first, and that sounds selfish, doesn't it? I mean, me first, I come first. But so why don't you break that down for us?
Yes. So I think I should back up and say that. So by trade, I'm a server. I'm a fine dining server by trade. So I grew up working in hotels and restaurants. So I tend to view everything through the lens of service and serving other people, right? And that kind of segued into me thinking about this whole, if I want anything to happen for me, I should do it for others first, right? I should do it for others first. I should do it for others first. And I recall thinking to myself, like growing up in the Caribbean, it's considered to be rude to not say hello and good morning and good afternoon to people. It's like a social faux pas. Like, you can't just go into a room and not say hello to everybody in the room. That would be considered evil, right? So when I moved from St. Thomas to the southern United States and Georgia specifically, it was fairly easy transition, because if I want people to say good morning to me, I say good morning to. I would just voluntarily say good morning to people, because that's just who I am. Then I moved to where I live in the DC area, and that's not necessarily the culture as much. Then I started to get a little jaded and said, you know what? I'm gonna wait for people to say hello to me before I say hello to them. And I was miserable. You know why? Because I was suppressing who I naturally am. Then I said, nah, that's ridiculous. Anything I want in my life, I have to make sure I do it for others first. Otherwise, I don't have any right to expect it, right? And I thought about that so much with my marriage as well. A lot of times when there was a disagreement or something, or there was like negative feelings, or I remember it's because I was waiting for her to do something for me. And if I was being honest, I wasn't doing it for her, right? So, and I think so, and I applied, and that it kind of goes into this whole mentality of owning your brand, owning it. Because if you own what you do, if you own your life, you own your brand, then there's no excuses, there's no blaming of someone else, there's no blaming of the departments, there's no blaming spouses or children, or you own your work. So all I can do, because I can't control anybody else, as you know, all I can do is what I can do. I can give, I can help, I can serve. And whatever comes back, comes back. If it comes back, well, that's good, because I know I'm using what was entrusted to me. So I wrote an affirmation based on that. There was one day, probably at night actually, I was somewhere and I was reading and I was meditating on that whole concept. And I was praying about that concept. And then God put an affirmation in my spirit called me first. So I wrote it down. And may I just share it real quick?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So it goes like this. It says, as I live each day, my goal is not to wait for what I can get, it is to see what I can give. I was allowed to wake up today, many others were not. I'm allowed to walk and talk today, many others cannot. I will use the gifts I've been blessed with today, many others will not. And because such favor has fallen on me, my mission is to serve first. I will encourage first, I will love first, I will help first, I will give first, I will lift first. Even more than that, I will open doors first. I will show gratitude first. I will give recognition first. Me first. I have no right to expect anything from anyone whom I haven't given something to first. I did not work for the air that I breathe. I have nothing to do with the sun shining on me. My heart is not beating because of anything I did. They're all gifts. And beautiful gifts at that. Gifts that I never asked for. Gifts that I receive every day. I'm alive, so I will live. I've received, so I will give first. That's me first.
I mean, if I don't even, I'm speechless. I'm actually speechless. I love that. And in fact, that beautiful card that you gifted us all at the conference, we do keep it. We have it, we read it. And in fact, we shared your affirmation with our team and they were like, that is just beautiful. I mean, if people lived more, I don't want to say exactly, but more that way, you just would think of how much more satisfied and happy and prosperous and successful could we all be if we took that mentality. So I just want to thank you so much for sharing that with us.
I praise God for it. I praise God. I give God the glory for it. It's not mine. I'm not that talented. That's God. He gets all the glory for it. But yes, that's the intent. The intent is if you're giving all the time and you're not worried about what comes back in return, disappointment goes down because we tend to be disappointed when our expectations are not met. Yeah? But if I don't have any expectations really, and my expectation is of myself to give first, everything else takes care of itself. And I've learned that to be true.
And I think in that, it's a learned skill. Just like all the other skills that we've talked about today. I mean, it begins with doing that today. So if you're a person who's listening to this in your car as you're driving to work in the morning, just think about this, ponder this, that what you do today is what you're going to do tomorrow and the next day and the next day thereafter. So how are you going to respond when you get to work? Will you go first? Will you be the first one to say hello? Will you be the first one to smile? Will you be the first one to serve? And I think this is just beautiful because once you start establishing that habit, then we start to see things come into our lives that we didn't expect. And yet our Creator knows it's what you should expect because this is by design. This is how we should be operating. We should be operating out of this servant's heart. And when we do that, that's when we can see true favor fall on us. And it's not luck. It was actually by design.
Yes. Proverbs 3:27, it says, do not withhold good from those who deserve it when it's in your power to help them. So when you call me and ask me if I want to be on this podcast, I said, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I can feel your spirit, right? When I met you in Minneapolis recently, I can feel your spirit. I can feel your energy. And time-wise, right, we are limited resources, so I can't say yes to everything. But in this case, I'm like, no, I'm going to make time, make sure that we have this opportunity to get together because I know that there is a message that I can share that someone listening to your podcast needs to hear. And I don't know who the person is, and I don't even need to know who the person is. All I do know is that we've shared at least 10 pieces of scripture already, and it will never return void, right? Never, ever returns void. So someone listening to this needs to hear something. And that's my only prayer, that someone gets something, takes something, not just like sniff what they or lick it. I want them to actually consume it, like eat it and digest it so that it'll create some sort of a transformation or behavioral change that can be sustainable in their life.
That's beautiful. Well, Dr. Williams, we want to thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, your willingness to share, and your just beautiful ability to allow God to work through you and do great things in your world around you. We have no doubt the ripple effect that this will have in the lives of those who listen. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure. And thank you so much, Corrie-Beth and Mike, for inviting me to be on your podcast. I'm sure you are doing phenomenal work. And this is, I can feel just the beginning. There's so many more people you're going to reach because you're doing God's work as well. So I'm grateful for you and I appreciate you.
Well, thank you so much. And in speaking about reaching, tell everybody how they can find you. Where can they reach you?
Absolutely. So the main website, the mothership, right, is drbwilliams.com. That's DRB Williams. Easy. drbwilliams.com. You'll connect there and you can see upcoming events. You can see an online store with all the 6 books and the posters, including me first. That's a poster that's on our website. We have, and then you can even see the social media icons. You can connect on social media as well. On Instagram, it's at Dr. Bryan W. It's the DRBRYANW. And yeah, Not easy, not too difficult to find, I don't think.
All right. Well, we will be sure to put all of that stuff in the show notes for anybody who's listening, who wants to find you. We highly encourage that you do, because Dr. Williams is just like a wealth of knowledge, has a beautiful spirit, great energy, and we love bringing people like him to you. So once again, thanks, Dr. Williams, and we can't wait to maybe have you back on again sometime.
Let's make it happen. I appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, you too.